It's XR at Work with Scott and
Dane.
it's us. We're back. Hey, Dane, it's good to talk to you. We've been working pretty active group. We've got a LinkedIn group called XR at Work. Would encourage you to join that if you happen upon this podcast and you're not a part of the group. On the group, we posted a poll, our first ever poll, and we asked, "What do you want us to do an episode about?" And the number one response was, "And the top tips for new XR professionals." So that's what we're going to talk about today. Um, we've got 5 ideas, 5 things that we're pretty passionate about as XR practitioners, and we wanted to share these with you. So we're going to get going with our top 5. And Dane, talk about number one.
Yeah, so the first one is building your network. I think a lot of times so there's a couple things. One would be build your professional network with other practitioners that are doing this in the space that's similar to you, or even outside of the industry that you're in, because there's a lot of overlap between the concepts that can be applied across industries. So I'd highly recommend XR Works, a great place to do that. That's kind of the whole reason that Scott and I started this podcast and the group on LinkedIn, is because we're XR practitioners and we're looking to expand our networks as well. But the other thing would be talking to a bunch of vendors, and there's a lot of different solutions that are on the market. I would make sure that you have your criteria for success for whatever it is that you want to do, laid out ahead of time, so that as you're talking through, you can kind of get an understanding of, does this solution fit my needs? Because I love our vendors, but every vendor is going to tell you that they're what you need. And so make sure that you have your criteria laid out ahead of time. But I think a solid mix of the practitioners and of the vendor, kind of network, and find, preferred partners in your network as far as vendors go as well, that'll just be honest with you and say, this is what's hard about this, or this is what works really well, and this is what we've seen other people do. I think that's super important.
You've got to have a network. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And we'd love to be part of that, wouldn't we, Dane? We'd love to be
Yeah,
part of
for
the
sure.
network.
Add us on LinkedIn, or like I said, join XR at Work, and we'd be happy to talk to you.
You bet. You bet. Great first tip. Build that network, right? So, tip number 2 out of our top 5 tips is we really encourage you guys and gals to start simple. It's easy to get in and get kind of caught up in the devices and kind of some of the glitz and glamour. People are interested in what you're doing in your job. And we really feel like it's important that you kind of start simple. Start with something tablet based, start with one device, do some simple remote expert capabilities, do something simple to just kind of build up some momentum and just kind of lay some groundwork. I think if you try to go buy 150 headsets at once and do a full scale implementation, you're not Walmart. Well, maybe you are Walmart, but if you're unless you're unless you're a big company with tons of money and people, we really encourage you. Dana Mine's experience has been just start off with a simple uh, uh, capability that really kind of shows some of the muscle of XR.
Yeah, and I would also say start off with a product that is built by a team that's not yours. What I mean by that is, I wouldn't start off by trying to develop, some huge, massive, internally built, platform that team has to manage and all those things, because there's a lot that goes into the product, piece of this, as far as product management, deploying new services, helping people address challenges when they have them. So I would recommend, just go to the market and find, an easy kind of first use case, and then buy hardware and software to address that challenge. I do think that there's an opportunity in the future, for like a more mature, more developed team to use, developers, for instance, to be able to, build a tool. But to start, I think it's always best to go to the market and see what you can do there first.
Right, right. Work it out in a small case first.
Mm.
It's a great point about don't try to take on going and learning Unity or UE5 and building your stuff, right? Get a COTS piece of software, commercial off the shelf, something you can put in place, relatively simple, and kind of get your feet wet with that. So we're starting simple. Once you start simple, right, is it going to work perfectly the first time? Dane, what's your experience?
Probably not. I mean,
Probably not.
the nice thing about this space is that it moves so fast, right? And so one of the things that Scott and I have talked about a lot is if it doesn't work, like let's say it's 2020, you're buying, a headset, and for some reason it's not working for your use case. Try it again in 2021. This space moves so fast. The capabilities of the devices and of the software move so fast that a use case that maybe wasn't enabled in the past may be perfectly capable today. And so don't feel discouraged if you get off on your first XR application and for whatever reason it doesn't work out. Generally, I think what I've found, and I'm interested in your experience as well, Scott, is uh, it never 100% fails. It always is like some percentage successful, and then you have a failure. And so what I would say is latch onto that success, double down there, apply more energy and resources there. And then as you get deeper and deeper into that use case, you'll learn more about kind of the parallels that can happen. And then for whatever reason that failed beforehand, you may be able to address that once you have some learnings from what did work.
You absolutely bring up a good point, man. I mean, we've got to be constantly learning. We got to be looking at what's working, what's not, what's changing in the landscape, and shifting and iterating through that. Uh, this is not a waterfall project, right? This is agile. We're going to do it in incremental, sometimes minor changes, and try to refine and get better over time. And you got to be learning all the time. That's a good point, Dane.
Mm-hmm. One other thing I would say is try a lot of different things as well. So
Yeah.
there's free trials of all kinds of software that you can have structured tests of various tools. So if you want to go and find a remote assist application, for instance, uh, go and try 4 or 5 different remote assist applications just to get a feel for what the market's like and what you like and what works with your security policies and all the fun stuff in the back end of that.
You're going to learn so much through these initial trials that you're going to be a pro in no time.
Yep.
So the next one, so in recap, right? So build your network, start simple, be willing to try different things and try a lot of different things, and don't give up. Always be learning. A big one for me, Dana and I talk about this sometimes, right? And that is that when you get into a new role, like Dana or I got into a few years ago, and you're the XR person at your company, right? Everyone wants to drag their brother-in-law's software company or some headset that they heard about or they saw a YouTube video about into your office and try and tell you, we got to be doing this, right? And can you do 50 of these by next month? I got a $200 budget. Be willing to say no, and be willing to say, I need to take a look at that, right? So don't get kind of cornered into having to commit to deliver to unrealistic expectations. If your network, guys like us, people that you're talking to in the industry say, hey, that my experience is not that you're going to be able to do that. If people in your network say that that's unrealistic, right, you're going to have to be willing to push back a little bit and say, hey, here's what I'm hearing, here's what I'm seeing. I really feel like we can do this, but it's going to take a little bit more time. You may not get the functionality you want. I understand this vendor that you're bringing to the table. You played golf with them. You may love what they got, right? But we're going to try a couple of different solutions, or we're going to try your solution and another one together in parallel. I mean, managing those internal expectations, Dane, I mean, how's that been for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, and I think on one of our previous podcasts, we showed an example of the marketing video from the Hollands where, the lady comes into the factory and, gets set up on her first day and, she's off whiz bang boom and,
In
doing
30 seconds, yeah.
30 seconds. Yeah. I think I'm excited about when I see those videos because I think it's good to get people excited about it, and I think it also helps with kind of buy-in when you go to somebody and you say, this is potentially what we could do. But I think the challenge with that is It's also, people think it's just, you put on the headset and like you just go out and do a job, right? And so I think,
It looks
making,
good on YouTube, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So everything works well on YouTube, and and it works the first time every time kind of deal.
Yeah.
And so the key thing I think there is getting it. Well, I think one, if you haven't done any XR stuff before, get a device, get it in, actually test it out, get a feel for this is what it looks like on YouTube, this is what it feels like in the real world, and then based on that you can get a better idea of this is what to expect if we wanted to scale this to 1, 10, 100 people. But yeah, I think the realistic expectations is important, because in a space where everybody thinks they can be Iron Man, right? You kind of do a disservice to XR, as a whole, if you are kind of over bullish on it, I guess, at first. And then also, it kind of poisons the well a little bit for XR in the future at the company, because if you promise the world to everybody and then you aren't able to deliver on time or whatever, they look at XR and go, oh, well, this is 5 years out, it'll never
Yeah.
work, all that stuff. And so I think it is really important to, set good expectations, both for, personal kind of growth and insanity as you're deploying these things. And also for the business expectation for the future of XR at the business.
So not just expectations with your internal customers, but you need to have some realistic expectations that you sit down and have a talk with yourself about. Yeah,
Yep.
sure. You bet. Great point. So, final top tip for new XR professionals, right? Dane's got a real passion for this one. Dane, what do you mean when it says lay out your capability plan? What would you advise everyone to keep in mind in their new roles?
Yeah, well, so I think this is actually, I think, could be a double-edged sword. So I want to be kind of very specific when we when we talk about this. When when you're looking at getting into the XR space, you get a feeling for, again, remote assist, guided workflows, navigation, whatever it is that you're looking at to do in the XR space. Get a good feel for exactly what you're trying to do, and then kind of lay out like a plan, right? That says, okay, first we're going to start with remote assist. If remote assist is successful, we're going to go to doing e-procedures in a AR headset. If that's successful, we're going to go to mirroring a digital twin, and kind of build out like a vision for what you would like to see for your team or for the business. The reason I say that is, one, you're probably going to need help at some point. And so if you're the only one at the business, then this gives you a business plan that you can say, hey, this is what I want to do, these are the resources that I need. Can I get some help to do this? And it makes it a lot easier to have that conversation, instead of just like, oh, Scott's playing video games over there and he's asking for a partner so he can
I've
play
heard
two-player kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. And so I think that plan's really important for, from a resourcing perspective. But I would also say, um, don't, I guess on the flip side, don't get too granular about that plan. So I wouldn't say like, okay, we're going to deploy HoloLens here, and we're going to deploy RealWear here, and we're going to deploy Mira here, or whatever. Like I would leave those boxes, or those achievements, or checkpoints, if you will, as open-ended as possible, because again, the space moves super fast, and so you want to be able to shift and change as new requirements come up. And as you learn more about each one of those things that you're implementing, it may be that the first headset that you pick up and try and implement isn't the right one for you. And so I think this is super important. And also, it gives the business kind of, it's back to that expectations conversation that we were just having, where if you can lay out a capability plan and people buy into it, they kind of know what to expect as they go forward. And you're not just like hitting them, out of left field with Iron Man, capability kind of thing.
And I fall and prey to this in my day job, is that for lack of a plan, people think you don't have a plan, right? They think you don't know where you're headed. Of course, I have a plan, but if I don't communicate it out, well, then I don't have that confidence, and people don't see that confidence in XR that you've got a plan for what you're going to do, and they need to see that you have some. You're not saying what inning you're going to hit a home run in. You're just saying you're gonna win the game and you're going to play all 9 innings, right? So you want to kind of lay that out in a general way. So I think that's great. Absolutely.
Yeah, and Scott, I think you've said this to me before. Like, if you lack a plan, then other people will plan for you,
They
right?
will.
And
They,
so what'll
you don't
happen?
want their plan because they
Yeah,
don't do XR. Yeah,
yeah. I was gonna say because what'll happen is you'll be responsible, or for XR at the business, but everybody else will be buying headsets and platforms and stuff to try
yeah,
and get the capability that they're asking for, as opposed to
absolutely,
trying to work as a team. And
absolutely.
so I think that's super important. Lay out your capability plan, have an understanding of what your 1 year to 3 year thoughts are. Be willing to change it too, because 1 year to 3 years is like a lifetime in the XR space. But that gives you kind of a North Star, if you will, to follow in your XR journey.
That's right. That's right. So in review, right?
Build.
Build your network. You got to start simple, right? You got to start, but you can start simple. It's important that you know that this is a journey, and you're going to need to try different things. It's not going to work perfect the first time. And I would say set realistic expectations, both with yourself and with the business, right? With your customers. And then you're going to have that plan. You're going to have to communicate it effectively. Back to, though, you're going to have some flexibility, and don't overcall your shot, right? So if you're new starting off in the industry, we'd love to have you in our network. Dan and I are always here for you. Dane, tell them where you're going to be coming up in June.
Yeah, so June 1st through the 3rd, I'll be at Augmented World Expo. If you guys are there and happen to see me, I'll be walking around with our new XR at Work stickers, and they look like this. So if
Gotta
you're
have it.
interested in one of these laptop stickers, feel free to stop me, and I'll hand one out to you.
Terrific. We hope this has been good for you. We've enjoyed it. Dane, everyone's looking forward to seeing you at AWE in Santa Clara. I will not be there, but Dane can absolutely. He's the smarter and better looking one in XR at Work. So you're in good hands there. We will do another episode soon, and we appreciate you. Please hit that like and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you on YouTube and on LinkedIn.